want you to put one thing that you value or that is important to you in each one of those circles. One thing that is of value to you or important to you. So in some cases it might be a motorcycle, right, that is important. It might be a person, a significant other, a loved one, a niece, nephew, grandchild. It could be a concept like freedom or justice. It could be a place like Bemidji or Belize, right? So one thing that you value in each one of those circles, or that is important to you in each one of those circles. So you have a total of 5 things. It looks like most people have 4, if not all 5. So we'll go ahead and we'll play a game. The game is very simple. What I want you to do is I want you to find a minimum of 2 people to sign each one of the things that you wrote down in your paper. And I only want them to sign if they agree that that is a good idea, that you have a good thing, or if they have the same thing on their paper. All right? So a minimum of 2 people for each one of the things that you wrote down in your paper. You have 90 seconds to do this, beginning now.
Oh, perfect.
All right.
A minimum of 2 for each.
Is that a connection? I think so. I would say so.
Should I sign all of yours?
Sure.
My children.
Let's see.
That too.
We'll get these 2.
Got it.
Yeah, I heard too many.
You got 3 for me. And I can agree.
So this,
Oh,
this is my family, I just labeled them.
60 seconds.
Good luck.
Oh, yeah, yeah, you can put like Joe.
Like that.
Yeah. Two there.
Marriage, children, the neighborhood.
Relationship, yeah, basically. I love that.
I signed yours.
Okay, what do you
Two.
got here?
You sign mine? Okay.
Freedom.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks.
45 seconds.
Sure. Family.
Faith, love. Who
Yeah.
can't agree with love?
Yeah.
With love. Love is all you need. So we need you,
Right when he's there. Let's see when you have.
Well, I agree with it.
yeah, I agree with
you.
you. Very important.
I need somebody.
Yeah,
I need
we can sign that
somebody.
one.
I got neighborhood.
This is
Nobody's
my
going
mom.
to
I
gas
have
or
family.
labor.
Okay, so do you want to do it now? How about,
You got
oh, I
it.
agree with kindness. It's not the same.
Don't you have community?
Who agrees with love?
I think love is fabulous.
Yeah, me
Oh,
too.
or bakery, I didn't know that.
That's right.
Pam and Lynn.
I forgot.
I already signed all yours.
I'm good everywhere else.
I
Marriage,
am
children,
not.
school, family.
Okay. What the heck?
Nobody signed. I said mine.
See.
Don't understand.
And I think
He hasn't called us.
Oh, that's the same thing, right? Yeah, okay.
We got each other.
Yeah.
I'll get you.
Okay.
20
Oh,
seconds.
yep.
Oh, thank you.
I have faith in mine, and family.
I just should have put on my list.
Has anyone voted for love yet?
Well, I agree with love, I have God.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and
That's what I did, I put.
game over.
I put.
I got this one.
Yeah, me too.
All right. So was there anyone that was able to find at least 2 people for each one of your categories? All right, Thomas, Joe, Tyler. All right, man, let's give him a hand. Give him a hand for hustling. Way to go, way to go. As you were walking around the room, were there things you saw on other people's paper that when you thought about or you looked at what was on your paper, you were like, man, why didn't I think of that? Or I should have wrote that down.
I would put it as like a smaller circle.
Oh, you would have put it as a small, what would you have put as a smaller circle?
Like career.
Career. So you saw that on someone else's and said,
Yeah, like as a
I would have
small-
made that a smaller circle.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Pam, did you see
I was gonna
something?
say community, and I was like, yes, but I was like putting names down, I was like.
Okay, all right, so you put names down instead,
Right, I was
but
like
you were
putting
thinking
people
community would have
in.
been a good one, okay?
I saw love and I was like, darn, how could I forget that?
Yeah, how could I have forgotten love, right? Everybody needs it, right?
And
Go
I
ahead,
put
Jen.
individual family people instead of just putting family. Some
Yeah.
people
Okay.
put family, and then they had other room for other things. I'm like,
Okay,
well, okay.
okay, so, yeah, so some people were really concrete and put the names of people, and other people put concepts and whatnot, and all of that is fair and is good. As you were going around the room, were there some things that were more difficult to find someone to sign on, or you actually didn't find anyone to sign
Yeah.
on one of those
Mhm.
things? All right, what was one of those things, Lindsay, for you?
Security, like everyone was signing everything else, and like, I don't have anyone for that, but at the
Okay.
end, people kind of started to.
Okay, so please raise your hand if you value security, however you define that, okay? So most of you raised your hand, that's great.
I did myself, and nobody really said
So-
People like, I'm sorry, I value myself.
Yeah,
and
no,
like, whatever.
please raise your hand if valuing yourself is an important thing for you. If you think
Yes,
that's
it's very
important. to
important.
It might have just sounded
Right.
conceited as written down,
No,
but like,
Yes, we got
It's
it, Narcissista.
yeah, but
Right,
like, you're
but-
important. Come on.
No, you are important,
You're
right?
important, yeah.
You're absolutely important, right?
Self-care is the clinical
Yes,
term.
that would
So-
have been much better to write. I'm gonna write that now.
All right. One last thing that you found difficult, yes?
I put farmland,
Farmland,
and I highly value farmland because I come from a family of a lot of farmers,
okay,
and that was like our life.
yeah,
But if someone doesn't know me, they probably don't understand that,
yeah.
so.
So
Yeah.
if farmland or even nature outdoors is important to you, even though you didn't write it on your paper, raise your hand, okay? So it's just about everybody raise their hand, that's good, that's good, that's good. So what do you think is the point of this particular activity? You guys are pretty smart. What do you think the point of this particular activity is?
Show priorities.
To show priorities, okay? Demonstrate priorities.
Show our differences.
To show our differences, okay?
I was gonna say the opposite,
Yeah.
so like, a lot of us
Yeah.
value the same things.
Okay?
Even
A lot of you value the same things. Go ahead.
Maybe what values can you bring to your future counseling position someday?
Okay, so what values you can bring to your future counseling position someday? All right, yes,
As
Lindsay.
I was looking at the things that I had listed, I'm realizing that those are all like core values of my family.
Those-
From my family that
Oh.
has become a huge part of my life.
All right, cool. So those are core values that come from your family, but now you've applied them in your own life. All right? Cool, cool, cool. Now, I would imagine, because I've done this activity a lot with different types of groups, and people are always able to find at least one person to connect with. And it sounds like most of you were able to find more than one person to at least connect with. Is that true? Okay. I would also imagine by listening to how you talked about your genograms and the histories that people gave, I would also imagine that your families don't necessarily know each other directly. There may be some, 6 degrees of separation or something like that, but just upfront and outright, they don't necessarily know each other. So how is it possible that we can have similar values, but the people who gave us those values don't know each other? How is that possible?
Because of our context, our culture, or where we are from.
Because of our context, our culture, where we are from, okay?
Maybe our parents and everyone before us were attracted to the same value. They looked for the same values in other people that they had in themselves.
They looked for the same
So-
values that they had, they looked for those values in someone else that they had so that they could meet folks with similar values,
Exactly.
okay?
Even
How-
just being in our current era, the timeline that we're in currently.
Okay, so being in our current era, the timeline that we're in, how does that impact how we might have similar values?
Like, I feel like kind of the revolution of like, for example, when women started going to the workforce and things like that probably would have been a strong value of that era,
Okay.
whereas I guess I'm not quite sure what.
Okay,
the
no,
current
that's
era
fine. That's
is,
fine. No,
but-
no, I want you to think this stuff out, right? And I also want you to say, I'm not into cultural. What do they say when the people have to say the right stuff? Political correctness, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not into that. So if you don't know what words to say, or you're not, you don't feel like you're as articulate as you want, say it, because this is the locker room. Right? This is the practice field, if you will. This is where we get that stuff together, so when we head out that door, we got our act together, right? When we get on the field, we know what we're doing. But until then, this is where we get all. So I want you to say whatever, and so we can work on that together. All right.
I'm sure there's a lot of similarities too, because we're all in the same, focus. We're all about counseling and taking care of others. Plus, we've all kind of had a lot of terminology put in front of us
Yeah.
during our training. So, I think a lot of us said like nurturing or love and family and friendship too. So I think that influences our values.
Okay. So because of our training, because of where we are and all that stuff.
I
Pam?
was just gonna say something, I was gonna say that I bet you could pick a population of people, to say within Minnesota, you would find similar things.
Huh.
It's not necessarily that we're in the same class or that, right? And I
Huh.
think as humans, we all,
That's what I was
it's all
gonna say,
like
there's something about
family,
being
love,
human.
these relationships or whatever, I think they would all have similar circles. No matter
Being
where
hungry
in the
in
world,
Switzerland is the same as being hungry and.
Why are we
Georgia.
able to find these similarities? Because we are similar.
Right.
Right? No. But it's so funny because it's one of these things that we do all this high, highfalutin thinking, and we get caught up in our, in our gymnastics of, intelligentsia, and we forget to look at what's right in front of us. We find these similarities because we're similar. And what makes us similar? Our humanity is what makes us similar. So do I have to necessarily understand another person's culture if I understand that they're human? No, I don't. Now, it's helpful. The more that I know about their culture, I can be more strategic in how I can help them. But if I recognize their humanity, I'm taking a lot of stuff off the table. Right? If I'm recognizing their humanity. And so part of the problem, we'll deconstruct this as we go through the class. Part of the problem is the same thing that I felt when I was in that store. I didn't feel like that woman was treating me like a human being, like she did everybody else. But there was something that was unique and special about me, and I don't mean special with the big S, I mean special with the little s, that I needed special monitoring, right? And so it's that humanity. So it's the things that make us human. So, I want to work with this diagram for just a second. And there, so I told you before, I was a middle school and high school teacher. So I had to break things down very simply. And so this is a very simplistic way to talk about some pretty sophisticated stuff. And I want you to take the principles and add whatever sophistication you need to be able to say it in a way that makes you sound really smart. Right? So when we start talking about humanity, I want to talk about this idea of the human soul, because this is what is an undercurrent that Sue and Sue don't quite get into, but we need to address it. All right? So it is my belief, and you can extrapolate your beliefs or add your beliefs to this model, but I want you to think about these overall concepts. That the human soul is made up of two things. It is made up of the body and the spirit. And so body is the phenotype, the physical, muscles and in ligaments and tendons and bones. It's our physical makeup. The spirit, if you will, is that intangible animating force that makes us alive, right? It's my belief that this human soul is a relationship between these two things. And so when the body is without the spirit, the body becomes a thing. Love my grandmother. And we have this thing in our family, and I don't know if it's cultural or just our family. They have this thing where there's an open casket funeral. I don't know if anyone's ever been to one of those things, but the person is laying in the box, wearing way more makeup than they did when they were alive. And they, in my grandmother's case, they had the wrong wig on her. She would have never worn that wig, right? But she's in the box. And people are coming up and they're, giving notes to my grandmother. They're giving their last wishes to my grandmother. And you always have that one creepy family member that wants to touch the body, right? So, Aunt Gertrude, get out of there. She's trying to touch my grandma. And it's a little creepy. And why is it a little creepy? Because my grandmother is what?
Dead.
She's not there,
She's
right?
just a body.
The house is there, but there are no occupants, right? So she is just a body without her spirit. Now, after the funeral, we would go to my grandmother's house and have a spaghetti dinner. And that's when you really got to watch people, because people are trying to steal stuff out the house. The woman is dead, and they're starting, taking her bowling trophies. Who wants to steal a bowling trophy? Anyway, so you're watching, and people are telling lies about my grandmother, they're telling stories about, and they try to steal pictures out the album. That's the thing you really got to watch, right? So they're trying to steal pictures out the album, and all that festivity and all that talking and stuff, it feels as though my grandmother is there. But her spirit is powerless without her body, right? So when the body is void of a spirit, it becomes a thing, and the spirit without a body becomes powerless, right? So it has less power than it did when it was related to the body. Now, there are some thinkers, both religious as well as scientific, folks in the scientific and medical community that believe that when there is a breach or a break between these two things, this is where we get dis-ease, disease, dis-ease, when there's a breach between the body and the spirit. Now, one of the things that I will tell you is that there is a conspiracy to destroy the human soul. And what this conspiracy is made up of is folks that are trying to increase dis-ease through creating a void and the void's second name. So the first name we'll call it void. The second name of the void, no. The void is being created, but the way we fill the void is actually what makes the void happen. All right? So work with me on this for a second. So in creating this dis-ease, we end up creating this void, and there's a monster waiting for this void to open up. It's waiting for this crack to happen between the body and the spirit. And the little monster that's waiting for this is called free market capitalism. Free market capitalism is waiting for there to be a void between, a breach, if you will, between the body and the spirit. So what do I mean by that? That free market capitalism is waiting for there to be a breach between the body and the spirit. Have you ever seen a commercial on television that makes you feel better about yourself, about being a human being? And I'm not talking about the herpes commercials, right? Because they all, they're living life and they're like, oh, I got herpes, whoa, right? Have you seen many other commercials where you go, wow, that really made me feel good about myself? Anyone? If you do, they're far and in between. Most of them are telling you how bad you are until what?
You try them.
Until you buy my product. You buy my product, and we'll put you back together, right? So, but what is the problem with free market capitalism saying we have the answer to this problem?
They don't have the answer?
So A, they don't have the answer. What's the other problem?
You still have the void.
I still have the void. Can I buy enough stuff to fill the void? No. Can I be as successful as Robin Williams and fill the void?
No.
Right? Our culture is full of individuals who had everything that everyone is supposed to have to be successful, and they still had a void. So what is it that actually closes the void?
Gotta put the body and spirit back
You
together.
got to put the body and spirit right back together, right? So free market capitalism causes the void or exploits the void, right? What are some things that also increases void? Racism adds to the creation of that void. Sexism. Heterosexism. Sizeism.
All the isms.
All the forms of oppression add to the exploitation of this void, right? That split. Which means that the human soul is at jeopardy. And when I stop seeing people as a complete soul, it's easy for me to think of them as things. And what happens when I start thinking about people as things? How do I... Go ahead.
The humanity kind of runs out. You start treating them like objects.
I start treating them like objects, right? Right? So that's why, good, decent men can go to these clubs and watch women take off their clothes for money. Because those aren't women, they are, what are they? Call them by their name.
I don't
Prostitutes.
know.
Strippers.
They're strippers! That's what they call them. They don't say I'm going to go see, they say I'm going to go see a stripper. They don't say I'm going to go see a young lady who's, trying to work her way through college. No, that's not what they say. They say I'm going to go see a stripper, right? We're going to make it rain, right? So that's what happens when we start seeing people as things. Outside of that exploitation of individuals, what else what do we do to people when we stop seeing them as human beings with souls and we start seeing them as things?
We don't value them.
We don't value them. So how does that show up in a society? How does a society start showing that they don't value people?
No health.
She said no health care,
No health
right?
care, no food.
Right? So some of those social programs aren't really focused on what else? Violence towards them, right? What else? Disrespect. Objectifying them. Using them for thinking that they're only good for one purpose, right? Whatever that one purpose is. These people are only good for playing basketball. These people are only good for drinking alcohol. These people are only good for golfing, right? I mean, so we start objectifying people, right? And so when I start getting objectified, what happens to my spirit? Becomes powerless. And how do I start feeling emotionally? Defeated. I can buy everything. Go ahead, Tyler.
Oh, I was just saying, emotion that I think of when it feels like the spirit's coming away, you feel numb.
Yeah. And I will tell you, numb folks and folks without fear are the scariest people to be around. Why?
You got nothing to lose.
Nothing to lose. I want somebody with something to lose, right? And so when you start having clients who start feeling this way, you got to start helping them to unpack and say, wait a minute, let's come back, let's bring our humanity back. You got to get a hold of your humanity. Now, I have a trick question for you, right? So the void starts happening. We start feeling this dis-ease. The soul and the body gets, kind of feels like it's getting separated or it's getting broken down through systems of racism and oppression and all this other stuff, right? So that's what happens. So in a biological process, we have I'll just do it like that, right? So this biological process says what? For the reproduction of human beings, how does that have to happen? For the reproduction of human beings, how does this have to happen?
Man and a woman
So male and female,
have sexual intercourse.
bam, right? They make that happen. They mate. And then what is the product of that?
Their offspring.
Their offspring being what?
Male or female?
Male or female what?
Humans.
Humans, right?
Or Prince.
Or Prince. Ow! Right? So male or female humans, right? Or Prince. And I like that. That was good. So this is the process, right? So even if we do artificial insemination, it's basically the same process, right? So it's a medical induced thing, but this is the process for reproduction. Now, what if I have a South African and a Canadian who engage in this process? What is the product?
A human.
Okay. Maybe you're not getting it. Okay, so I have a Brazilian and a person from the Ukraine. They engage in this process. What is their product? Okay, maybe I'll say it again. Okay, so I have a person from North Minneapolis and a person from South Minneapolis. They engage in this process. What is their product?
A human.
Are you sure?
Yes.
All right, so I have a person from Chile and I have a person from Japan, and they engage in this process. What is their product?
Both of them?
A human.
Awesome cuisine.
You said some awesome cuisine. Why? Why is this equation always equal this?
Because we're all very similar.
Because we're all very similar, right?
Yeah.
So if I have a black man and a white woman and they participate in this process, what do they have?
Really cute.
Huh. Right? That's not what the popular narrative is. If I have a native woman or a native man and a Hmong woman, what is the product?
A human.
It's a human. What's the popular narrative? What do we say in the popular narrative?
A mixed.
They're mixed. Mixed what? Mixed human. Right? When we start trying to break down, we start adding these racial, all these things, what we're trying to do is deconstruct the human soul. We're trying to trick people into believing that they're not human. And we go so far as to help people. We actually give people a lexicon that helps them say to other people, I'm not human. I have heard people refer to themselves as being white. Anyone ever heard someone refer to themselves as being white? I've heard people refer to themselves as being black. Where is white on a map? And don't say St. Cloud. It's not on a map. Where do people come from? They come from places. White is not a place. Where is black? It's not a place. So where do people come from? And if you don't know where you come from, you'll let people call you anything. Right? And so part of this idea of humanity is that no matter how I'm born, I am born human. There's no if, and, or buts about it. I am human. Even if there are things that are trying to destroy or take away my humanity. Now, here's another trick about our humanness. Can I be treated inhumanely? Yes, most people are saying yes, right. So what might be? So what does that mean to be treated inhumanely?
Be treated like a dog.
To be treated like a dog.
As.
To be treated as a dog.
Subhuman.
To be treated subhuman. Now, here's the trick. Being treated as a dog, does that make me a dog?
No.
Being treated subhuman, does that make me subhuman?
No.
No. What is constant in my existence?
Your
Humanity.
My humanity. Can my humanity be taken away from me?
No.
No. So how is it that people behave themselves not like humans? How is it that people start behaving not like humans?
Because they're not treated like a human.
Because they're not treated like a human?
Because they think it has been taken away?
Because they believe that it's been taken away. Therefore, they act as if, what? It's gone. But the truth of the matter is what?
It's not.
It's not. But because I believe that it is, I act in accordance with that. Therefore, I act as if. Right? And so I'm always human. So when you're interacting with your clients, you have to help them remember their humanity. And no matter what other people say or do to them, it can never be gone. You can only lay down your humanity. Yes, sir.
So what you're saying in a way is when you had that incident in that store, it felt in that split second, that moment, that your humanity was gone or someone was attempted to take it away.
That's what it felt like.
And that made you want to act
And it
in
made
accordance.
me want to act in accordance to what that felt like. Right? So yes, John.
Well, it reminds me of a situation. I always ask this question. I visited Pelican Bay Prison in Northern California. And there, it was a completely secured unit, which Minnesota has nothing comparable. These men are never touched by humans, okay? And so everything's run in a control box, and I observed some of this. And I asked myself, are these men, and basically all they have to wear is their underwear, and they go out through a gate into a, 20 by high by, 6 by 8, that's their exercise yard, and then they go back in. And are they treated like animals because they came in, these are the worst of California, because they were behaving like animals, therefore they're being treated like animals? Or did they become animals after being treated as such?
The way I would answer that question is have you look at your genogram. Right?
Yeah.
So we all come from a context. We're coming out of a context. And that context has a great deal to do with how we get shaped and how we get, where we get our motivations from. Right? And so, people say, is it nature or nurture? And I say yes.
Yeah.
and you can't separate the two, right?
It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
It is a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? And the scary thing is, for some folks, the prophecy was told 4 or 5 generations ago, and so they're fulfilling those prophecies because it was prophesied, right? So your people are like this. So boom, 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 boom. And then the trick sometimes becomes is that groups of people will say, well, it's cultural. This is how our culture is. No, it's not. You weren't always like that, and you can be different, right? And so helping our clients look at regaining their humanity is going to be extremely important. And not even regaining it, but remembering that you're human. No matter what other people say or do to you, you have the choice to respond humanely or inhumanely, right? So like the human being you know that you are or not. And so that's extremely important, all right? So let's go to the second page in your handout. Because I do want to talk a little bit about this overall context, because there's some things that make our experiences in the United States so much, that makes our experiences unique and rich. And so when you asked me was I a therapist, I was like, well, let me make sure I answer this correctly, or if I was a counselor, right? So, and I'm not. And so when I do my diversity interventions, that's not the way that I come. My training and in my education has been around how to use the law to get to these things. And so one of the things that I do in my practice is I spend a lot of time talking about our great and sacred document, the Constitution of the United States. And why might, as a person who's not a therapist, why might I start there as the beginning premise for talking about anything about diversity and inclusion?
Because within the Constitution of the United States, it talks about how you have natural rights as a human being, and no one can give, not any government or any person can give or take that away from you, that you're born with it. It is what it is. You can't get it taken away. You are who you are. Right?
So that's what the Constitution says. And what is the other part that makes that an immutable point, a point that we can't even, there's no argument to this point? Why else would I use that to start out these conversations?
It's the basic foundation of humanity, like all humans are to be treated fairly and equally.
Okay, so it's a basic principle of humanity, but why else? Why here? Why would I use that here?
The law.
It's the law!
Yeah.
Right? It's the law of the United States. This is the document that we build everything else on. So if you got a problem with that, then you're certainly going to have a problem with anything else that I say after that, right? And most folks can't or don't want to argue with the Constitution, right? They don't want to mess with it. Let's not touch it. Because, to be quite honest, it's a great document. We've had it around for 200 and how old are we now? We just had a birthday. To what? I don't remember. Right? So we've had it for as long as the country has been together, right? And we've had some trials to that thing, and there were some times when we thought we were going to rip ourselves apart, particularly with that other flag, because you can't have a nation with 2 flags. So I'm glad the other flag is being let. Okay, anyway, all right. So that's where I start with this stuff, because of those 2 points, right? So the Constitution talks about that. So let's talk about the preamble. The preamble of the Constitution states, "We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and securing the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, we do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America." Declaration of Independence, paragraph 2, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord, His truth." Are you guys enjoying that?
Yes.
So, all right, right? So those things, when I read those, I get pumped. I get amped. I'm like, ah, right? Because I'm so excited because those are such great words. However, we didn't always live up to the best of who we are, right? But we're trying. And so here's some of the steps that we've made to try to get there. One is, what happened in 1863?
Emancipation.
The Emancipation Proclamation. And what did the Emancipation Proclamation do? What did it do? It abolished slavery. What else did it do?
Didn't it unite America with the South again, the Union with the South?
That's arguable since there's still another flag.
That's true.
So some places got two flags.
Right.
What else did it do? It ended slavery. And what else? What does it mean to emancipate? Free. Who?
Slaves.
The slaves. What is a slave?
Someone who has to work or perform whatever their master or quote owner says they have to do.
Okay. What is a slave?
Someone has no freedom and still has to do what she just said.
Okay, a person has no freedom and still has to do what she said. What is a slave?
A human being that isn't recognized as others as a human being.
It's a human being that's not recognized as a...
Because they can't, like we said, we can't take away anyone's humanity, but you can think that you've taken them.
Mhm. So if I can get people to think that I've taken away their humanity, then they will act as if their humanity is gone, right? Yeah. So what is a slave?
An oppressed human being.
A slave, go ahead.
Traditional terms, like how African Americans were taken overseas in ships and whipped and beaten and then
Sold as
picked
property.
cotton and tortured and like had to clean houses and became servants to the elite.
This is a slave. What is a slave?
A thing.
It is a thing. So people get this really confused because sometimes people want to compare the transatlantic slave trade with, they even go to biblical references of Jews or early Hebrews being in Egyptian slavery, or they talk about antiquity types of slavery. The thing that made the transatlantic slave trade different than slavery and bondage in antiquity is that the slavery system, first of all, was an economic system. That's the first thing. So sometimes people will want to blame white people for slavery as if white people are just naturally evil and some people use the word devils, right? No, I would not say that. I would say that there were the ruling class who were greedy and hungry for money that created that system, right? So it's an economic system. The other part of that slavery system was to transform human beings into things. So I don't know if you guys saw this. Many of you are way too young to have seen this. But there was this television show that came on called Roots.
I watched
Right?
that.
Did you watch that?
In middle school.
In middle school. All right. So one of the opening scenes is that they capture these people from Africa. They bring one of the young men into the camp, and they chain him up. And it's LeVar Burton from Reading Rainbow, Geordie LaForge from Star Trek, right? So they have him, and they have him chained up, and they say, so they hit him, and they say, what is your name? He says Kunta Kinte, and he says, no, your name is Toby. And so he hits him again. He said, what's your name? And the man says, my name is Kunta Kinte. He said, no, your name is Toby. So he hits him again. And this keeps going until finally he hits him the last time. He says, what is your name? And the man says, Toby. What just happened? He broke his spirit and turned him into a thing. So when you take away people's religion, you take away their language, you take away their cultural icons, their cultural connectedness, the connectedness to the land, what starts to die? The spirit. And what rises up to replace it?
Avoid.
Free market capitalism. If I'm not feeling good about myself, what do? Get some Axe spray. Because indiscriminate women will come from all over, right? If I drink a little more, yeah! And then it's gone. If I can't feel, I'm so numb. Oh, okay. Oh, that's pain. Or feeling pain is better than not feeling anything at all, right? So this becomes important. So this 1863 becomes important because it was the emancipation of human beings, right? So in 1920, August 18th, what happens? The 19th Amendment is signed.
Women get to vote.
I am woman, hear me roar, ah! Right? Great stuff. Women get to be a part of their own, deciding the fate of their own destiny. 1924, the Polk Act is signed. Polk Act is signed, giving Native Americans American citizenship. Pause for the irony.
Yeah, I know, it's like they were here first.
But in 1924, they become U.S. citizens. 1964 Civil Rights Act is signed, and it does two things, two very important things. What does the Civil Rights Act do?
Outlawed segregation.
It outlawed segregation, and
it banned discrimination.
it defined discrimination,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So it outlawed segregation and defined discrimination. So finally, I have a tool to use to combat all of this evil that's going on, right? So it defined discrimination and outlawed segregation. Guess what else it did? It did a third thing that's not much talked about. It said to African Americans and other folks, because the funny thing about this 1964 Civil Rights Act is that the people who want to abolish it in another 20 years are going to need those same protections. So in 2040, there's going to be a demographic shift where the majority is no longer the supermajority, but will become the slight minority, which is interesting because they've always been the minority if you look at the planet population. But that's a whole other thing. The language, we'll talk about that too. Right? So 1964 said to subjected people, we recognize you as human now. Welcome to your humanity. You get everything else that everybody else gets. But up until that point, we had Jim Crow segregation. We had sundown laws that said that certain groups of people with a certain amount of melanin and pigment had to be in or out of town by a certain time, and all those kinds of things. And then 1978, the Native American Freedom of Religion Act is signed. Again, another opportunity for an ironic pause. So this act said that Native Americans could worship in any way they felt they needed to or could. So they got the freedom to worship how they wanted to. Just weird. 78.
Yeah.
Not that long ago. And then 1990, the Americans with Disabilities Act, which did what for whom?
Give people with disabilities the right to an education.
It gave them the right to an education, jobs,
Now when they kind of started doing those sidewalk
the
ramps.
sidewalk ramps and all that kind of stuff.
Accessible
With
Yeah,
accessible
accessibility.
bathrooms and that kind of stuff. So did they get special rights?
No,
No.
They didn't?
no.
No.
Just made it equitable or whatever.
Ah, they got equal rights. So people will try to trick you with that language, right? So they'll say, you know, you're giving those people special rights. No, we're not giving those people special rights. We're giving those people equal rights. The rights they already had, but now we got to write it down because some of y'all don't believe that they had them, right? So there's that. I was going to talk about, I can get through some of this. So at the bottom of that chart are 3 ways to kind of think about diversity strategies. There are these things called affirmative actions, which really focus on impact versus intent, right? So what that means is, for example, I'm walking down the hall, a coworker, you know, swats me on the butt and grabs, and we're not on the softball team together, right? What would I call that? What would you label that?
Sexual harassment.
Sexual harassment. What happens after I label it sexual harassment? What do I do?
Report
I report it to whom?
to human resources.
To human resources, to my supervisor, to human resources, and we start going down this legal path, right? But what if the person says, you know what, I was just joking. It was just a joke.
Doesn't matter.
Does that?
It's what you, the victim, perceive as the intent, not what the person who committed the act.
Well, I can perceive someone's intent, but that's not what gets measured. That's not what keeps this thing going. It is the impact of the behavior. So even if someone says, my intention was good by doing this, you know, inappropriate act, we're not measuring their intention, we're measuring their impact, we're measuring their behavior, right? So that's affirmative actions, and we can go through some other stuff later. When we start talking about this idea of diversity and inclusion, this is in organizations specifically where people kind of get things kind of confused, right? So diversity and inclusion is measuring the intent over the impact. Keeping in mind the impact, but trying to work on the intent. So that's where we have, you know, cultural competence trainings, where we have, you know, sensitivity trainings, all that stuff to work on people's intentions to minimize negative impacts. All right? So that would be diversity and inclusion stuff. However, the third category is where we actually have change, and that's in people's relationships, because people change people, right? So, you know, why don't militaries want their servicemen and women to fraternize with the enemies, with the enemy? Why do they not want them to fraternize with the enemy?
So they won't kill them.
Because it becomes difficult to kill somebody that you know, or that you like, or that you understand where they're coming from, right? And so when we start talking about human behavior change, it's that direct relationship, one-on-one, that allows us to kind of change our behavior, or at least be open to changing our behavior. All right? So let's go into the next page. I think it's page 5. So what I'd like for you to do is in this, in between those 2 pictures is a circle. Does everyone see that circle? Okay. So this is the circle of all human knowledge. Okay, I'm a little melodramatic, right? So let's call it the pie of all human knowledge. What I'd like for you to do with this pie is I want you to cut yourself a piece of pie the size of what you know of everything there is to know. All right? So that's all history, all math, all science, all languages, all religions. What do you know of everything that there is to know? All right? So just try to draw something. It's just a graphic representation. All right? So Pam, what were some of the things that are inside that piece of pie?
Just a line.
It's just a little line. And what's in that line? What is it that you know?
I know things that I've been educated in.
No, just give me one. I just need one. One thing you know.
I know about
Okay, so you know about medical diagnostics, all right?
Yeah.
Someone else, what is something that you know for sure? You know.
I didn't draw anything because I don't feel as if I know everything about.
I didn't ask you about every, I just asked
That's what you
do know?
said.
No, I said, what do you know about everything there is to know?
Oh, I think I said everything about, like, one thing. No, never
So
mind.
what's
I thought
one
about
thing-
it much differently.
Okay, so what's one thing you know for sure?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, you do, you know something for sure. Everybody knows
I know,
something
but
for
it's-
sure.
I know that
I
I'm
don't
a
know.
woman.
You know that you're a woman, all right? One more.
I
It's
know-
going to heaven someday?
You know
I know
that you're,
that.
you know you're going to heaven someday.
I
Thomas?
know motorcycle safety laws.
You know motorcycle safety laws, all right? Cool, cool. So those are things that you know. So now that
Okay.
you've heard, so
Yeah.
just draw a piece of pie the size of what you know, of everything there is to know. All right? So now what I'd like for you to do is I want you to cut yourself a piece of pie the size of what you know you do not know. Now, I will tell you that it is A, quantifiable, and B, you will have a third slice of pie. So make that second slice a size that leaves you some room for a third piece.
That you do not know.
So what are things that you know you do not know? For example, I know that I don't know Mandarin Chinese. I know that I don't know quantum physics. I know that I should not be your airplane pilot. I should not be your pilot. Those are things that I know that I don't know. All right? She said, I
I
can't do
can't
it.
do it because there's too much I don't know, like I can't.
Just,
Because we don't know what the third one's gonna be.
well, I'm going to tell you what the third one is, but you got to
Yeah.
decide what the second one it is first.
Yeah, I might have to change. Yeah.
So you can change it if you want to after you find out what the third one is, but this is going to kill Pam. She's going to
It
kill
is,
her.
like, yeah.
So what are some things that you know you don't know, that you are aware of that you don't know?
Physics.
Physics. Please raise your hand if you also know you don't know physics. I mean, enough to be like, okay, Scott's like something, you know. All
I know
right.
if I throw this pen, it will like fly across the room.
Right, yeah, no, you're right, yes. So you do know physics, all right, all right. Someone else, something else that someone knows they
I
don't.
know that I don't know what it's like to experience perimenopause.
Yes, all right. I'm gonna just skip that one, but I think we got the idea, all right, all right. One last thing.
I don't know what it's like to walk on the moon.
Yeah, if you don't know what it's like to walk on the moon, please raise your hand. Okay, cool, all right. So you have what you know you don't know, and what do you think the last piece of that pie is?
What do you think you know?
What you want to know.
When you,
What you don't know, you
That
don't
you
know,
know.
right? Or
Oh.
just fill in that part as blind spot. Say blind spot.
Oh, yeah, that's a lot right there.
I never think like this. Makes you think about stuff.
Well, good. That's exactly what. Yes. Right. So there's what you know you don't know, and then your blind spots. Now you invite me over. You're having a fancy dancy dinner at your house, and you say, Andre, we want you to bring your world famous pecan pie. World famous. I won a blue ribbon at the state fair 2 years ago for pecan pie on a stick.
Is that true?
Did you
That
really?
is not true. No.
Oh, that's my favorite part. Maybe sometime.
I was like, there's no way. I picked it up.
I'm like, let me back up.
Yeah.
So you invite me over for my world famous pecan pie, right? And so I show up with a little sliver of the pie left. Do you invite me to bring my world famous pecan pie again?
No,
No, why?
there's not enough.
Because there's not enough. There's not enough. So once you have that circle, let's call that circle a paradigm. Write the word paradigm above that. Paradigm. I used to say paradigm because I was hooked on phonics. Paradigm. The way you see the world. Whose primary job was it to introduce you to a paradigm? As you entered the planet, whose responsibility was it to say, here, young child, is a paradigm?
Mother and father.
Your mother and father, your guardians, your caretakers, your family, the people who were supposed to raise you, right? And where did your parents, your caregivers, the people who were supposed to raise you, where did they get their paradigm? From their parents. And where did their parents get their paradigm to give to you? From their parents. So where did your parents' get their paradigm to give to you?
Dinosaurs.
Their parents.
Have you ever received a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy?
Yeah.
Mhm.
When you get down to that 5th or 6th generation of that copy, does it look exactly like the original?
No.
No. How is it different from the original?
Faded.
It's faded. What else?
Blurry.
It's a little blurry.
Changed.
It's changed in some way.
Might be crooked on the
It might be
page.
crooked.
Might be damaged.
Might be damaged in some kind of way, right? But we still keep taking these people's pies. If our grandparents got a faulty paradigm, what did our parents get? A faulty paradigm. And what did our parents give us? Is it possible that the things that the people that we love and trust gave us could be wrong?
Yes.
Is it possible that there could be more opportunities or different opportunities for us than what they were exposed to?
Yes.
When I went to Cairo, Egypt, some of my cousins were baffled. They were like, "How did you go to Cairo, Egypt?" I said, "I had a passport." Guess what they said?
How'd you get it?
"You can get one of those?"
Really? Wow.
So yeah, and then I had another family. No, really, how'd you get over there? I bought a ticket. I bought a ticket and I went. And they were like, "You can actually that. Why are they asking me these questions? Because it's outside of their paradigm, their way of seeing the world. And so now that I've gone, they now see that it's actually doable. You can go to these places. You can do these things. You can operate outside of your paradigm and be okay. Right? And so, did your parents pass down a faulty paradigm because they were mean and evil people? No, they did it because that's what they knew. And so our job is to take what they gave us and see what works for us and give back the rest. The stuff that doesn't work. So we'll pick more up on some of these things on Saturday. We'll also do some activities on Saturday. I didn't get as far as I wanted to, so I have to augment the quiz for Saturday, but I'll take care of that. Just want to talk about the shorthand of reading this book. So there are lots of chapters in this book, and what I would suggest, the way I would suggest that you read this book is look at the chapter focus questions, which is usually at the beginning of each of the chapters. Read the reflection and discussion questions. Now this is before you do anything else, so read these things.
It's discussion and focus.
It is discussion and focus. Oh, it's reflection and discussion.
Page
Reflection.
30 is that.
Yeah. So in the first chapter, well, we're not doing the first chapter, I think it's the second chapter that we start. So for example, page 33, start there. Page 44, read those reflection questions. And then here is the grand poobah of all of these things, which are the multicultural competencies, which is usually towards the latter third of the chapter. And it'll say the multicultural counseling competencies.
Page 50.
So in the case of the second chapter will be page 50. And then finally, at the end of each chapter are the implications for clinical practice. If you read those 3 or 4 pieces that I just mentioned, you'll be able to knock out the chapters. All right? So the discussion questions at the beginning, the discussion and the reflection and discussion questions, read those. And read the multicultural competencies, and finally the implications for clinical practice, and you should be good. That's a shorthand way of getting through those chapters. All right?
Okay.
Any questions, comments, observations? All right.
Most people that take this class, like full-time people, like that work full-time too, that's why it's in the evenings. Right.
They're always.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
this
but I'm
is-
just saying,
this
like,
is-
I always wonder if it's, you know, like more challenging because we're full-time to read books like that, whereas if we weren't working, we.
Yeah, I can't say, you know.
Well,
This is what I do know, Scott. People do what they want to do. So, that's all I know. People do what they want to do.
Should we
So-
just keep these all in our binder?
Yep, you can keep those, yep, those are all
Okay.
yours, you can keep them in your binder. I would, so 500 word reflection, Saturday. All right, so bring it
8:30.
in printed
Bring it
Saturday.
less, okay.
Do we need to like in a journal that you wanna read, we need to turn it in?
If you could print it out, because I can read printed pieces better than oftentimes people's handwritings. So, yeah. So, thank you so much. Any questions, comments, observations before we dismiss? All right, cool.
No?
All right, I hope this was helpful tonight, and if not, say, Andre, pick it up, slow it down, you talk too much, you know.
If you pick it up, I don't know, if you talk faster than you talk,
I can.
no.
No? Okay.
I couldn't understand them. You'd be too,
Oh.
like,
I
it's
think you-
perfect.
I think you could, I think you could get it. I think you could get it, you know. So,
You kept me awake and that was,
oh, good.
Yep.
No,
very interesting.
when I get nervous, I talk faster, which,
Yeah, I feel like you talk faster.
all right, good.
Saturday.
Thank you, Andre.
Okay, not a problem, thank you, good to have you, Scott.
Your
Okay.
priorities. So I'm missing 2.5.
I'll get you on the back end.
If I find coverage, then I'm good.
I might have to leave like the phone call and earlier.
Okay.
Is that okay? Thanks for great class.
Oh, no
Yeah,
problem.
thank you.
It's been good.
Do we need
Should we help
do
you
anything with these?
No, I got it,
You sure?
yeah. I was trying to make something a little cozier as
This is
It
opposed.
was cozy.
I liked it. Good discussion.
Good.
All right. See you in a couple days.
All right, you got it, all right, good.
Thank you.
Not a problem.